Awesome. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Action-Based Leaders. Dan and Debbie here from Cultural Alignment Solutions. Super excited to be here. Debbie, welcome. This was supposed to be live on LinkedIn, but we're gonna go. We're gonna go off course a little bit, and we'll post it later.
Yeah, but we're going to beg everybody that sees this to do something for us. Dan, what are we going to ask them to do?
So the reason we can't go live on LinkedIn simply is that we don't have 150 followers on our Cultural Alignment Solutions page. So that is the first thing that if you are hearing this, go over to Cultural Alignment Solutions on LinkedIn, like the page for us, follow it so that you can get these updates and that we can go live inside of LinkedIn.
Yes.
That's our next goal.
Please, please, please. We did not know that. So that's our first task here.
Hey, everybody's got to start somewhere. And well, we're starting right here, right now, like most people should. So very cool. The book, If Your Team Sucks, Find Out Why, is actually now available on Kindle. So super excited about that. Congratulations. Talk to me about it. What brings this up for you and why this book, why right now?
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, right? When I get a call, it is because something's going on inside of the team, period. Whether they don't have good communication, whether there's conflict, whether there's, not hitting goals, not taking advantage of the time piece of it, or accountability, right? Those are the 4 things that we as action-based leaders focus on. And it's always pushed out to the they don't when I'm talking to the leader. And the reality is, if your team sucks, my first question to the leader is what within your leadership is allowing that to suck, right? So it is a huge part of what we do at Cultural Alignment Solutions is we build action-based leaders. And we do that simply to help people unsuck their teams.
Now that's got to be a harsh reality. Like has anybody reacted negatively, like completely lost it? Like what's been the worst on that side?
What do you think?
Of course, but there's got to be a good story,
human nature tell
right?
us to do. Yeah, human nature is like, yeah, I've had people literally go, we'll talk later. Thank you very much. Or their ego flares up. How dare you? You don't know my team. I even had one literally one time tell me, you don't, we actually write about it in the book, in the opening of the book, but he was like, you don't know my team, basically telling me to go get a real job, that my job wasn't real and that I didn't understand what he went through. And it's all normal, in all honesty, to feel that, because a lot of times these leaders have bent over backwards. They feel for their team, trying to get their team moving, motivated, trying to, create an environment of team. But they really weren't getting to the root cause, and the root cause was themselves. And then how do we get into that? So do I go in right away and say your team sucks if you've never met me before? Yeah, I do. Because I have learned that if you beat around the bush, you're going to have to pay for it later. So just go in and be totally open, right? It's creating a space for them to be able to hear it and for them to be able to work with it.
That's the no BS coach, right? I mean, that's ultimately what it comes down to is speak straight, because I love what you said on that side of it of the, hey, if you don't now, it's going to come back later.
Yep, absolutely. And I've been doing this for many, many years, right? I've been doing it for 15 years as myself, 13 years as Cultural Alignment Solutions. And in the beginning, I was so fearful because you want that client, right? And so you're just friendly to everybody and you can do everything. And as the years went, you learned who was your ideal client. Who did you really like to work with? I like to work with teams that have conflict. I like to work with teams that don't see things the same way. I like to work with teams that suck, because I know that if they put in the work and do the work, it's going to be an awesome team on the other side. And to me, that is so gratifying.
What do you look for, or what should leaders look for in their team that would say, hey, either this isn't working right, it's dysfunctional, for those people that may be hesitant to say, yeah, my team sucks, like what are they looking for in their teams that would make this evident?
Resistance, not hitting goals, productivity, big time, turnover, accountability. If you see a lot of excuses, right? A lot of explanations, even a lot of coping, a lot of tolerating, that those are some telltale signs of you need to start getting up underneath the covers. The leader saying, hey, this is a plan, this is the way that we're going, and then there's no execution to that, right? So if you don't have that execution management piece going on, yeah. Time to get under the covers.
Now, when you go into different organizations and you say get under the covers, what are you doing? Like, how are you peeling that back?
There's a process that we do, and it takes time. So we don't have time today to sit here and talk about the whole process, but to get under the covers, there is something actually blocking the leader, right, from having the team that the leader wants to have. And it's in one of 4 areas, right? So there's some type of an assumption going on, there's an interpretation going on, there's a limiting belief going on. The other one is we say there's those little gremlins moving around. So we're going to go in and find out where the block is. But you have to do that to go under the covers, get under the hood, what is going on underneath. And 9 times out of 10, and these were those tough conversations that I didn't know how to have years ago, it's usually sometimes the one closest to you that's actually undermining your leadership.
So
if not
your right
yourself.
hand, right?
Yeah.
Well, so I mean that those are usually the people that you trust the most, that you can have those candid conversations with, that you never even think of.
Yep. Absolutely. And there's a reason why that happens. Do they wake up in the morning necessarily and say, oh, I'm going to take my, leader down, my CEO down, the organization down? No, that's not the intent at all. A lot of the organizations that I work with, it's a lifestyle. It's a way of working together, because we give permissions as a leader to the ones that we're closest to, that we're counting on them to be fulfilling the mission. But in reality, they're actually taking the same permissions that you're taking then with their people. And so we've got to create that culture of accountability and what that looks like, a culture of transparency. And that takes time. It's a change management piece that has to happen.
Well, and I think that's a huge piece, that change management side of it. So many people will say, okay, hey, let's read this book, that book, whatever it is, but like really like creating that culture of accountability. Like once you start like, where do you start to install that?
The accountability piece, with the leader. And that's the whole reason for the title of the book. If your team sucks, find out why. 9 times out of 10, it's with accountability. No, I probably would say 10 out of 10, but I'm going to say 9 out of 10, it's with accountability.
Right. Can't be perfect all the time, right?
Can't be perfect. So, and the reason why it's with accountability, because that is the relationship, is accountability. And the mindset around accountability, in all honesty, across the board, higher percentages. The word accountability is I do a red-green thing, is a red word to a lot of people. They're just not comfortable with the word because it was hoarded over them. So people have this crazy energy around the word accountability, but yet as leaders, we need our team to be accountable, right? We need them getting stuff done. We need them reporting back. And we set up all of these systems and CRM systems, which are only as good as the information put in. So when you have to step back and look at the culture of accountability, you have to start with the leader, because the leader has to have a very different mindset from that moment forward. And it's learning a new mindset of, I'm accountable to them for their success.
Well, that then leads into that whole change management piece, right? If the leader has to learn something new, how do they go through that change, right? What does that look like in building that with the leader?
Yes. Once I assess, it could be a rollout all at one time, right? I'll tell you, on the most part with my clients, the leader is ready, right? I'm a firm believer of when the student is ready, the teacher appears type thinking. And 9 times out of 10, when a leader, by the time they call us, they know something's outside of I got to get this fixed. Yep. So they're ready. So I might do a few one-on-ones with that leader, and then we lay out the plan of how we're going to roll it out to the team. So whether it's going to be group coaching, whether we're going to we usually do a training, a whole group training first, because they have to figure out who I am. Well, what does our system look like? What does it mean to become an action-based leader? And we do all of that in the beginning, and then we'll chunk the group down, depending on how big the group is. It might be a smaller group. And then we start taking them through group coaching as they get to know each other and learn how to lead from our 3 words: action, accountability, and follow up. And then everybody leads from that.
So once right, and action accountability sounds awesome, right? It sounds like the unicorn, the somewhere over the rainbow kind of thing. Like, but what's in? Obviously, you've done this before, done it with lots of different companies. What happens then? Like, what does it look like to actually have action accountability and follow up inside of your organization?
That's actually a really good question, because here's the thing about action accountability follow up. It has to be maintained. It has to be maintained. And that is why we've structured the way we work with organizations very differently as corporate coaches. So we have a very different process where we relation with our clients, and all of our clients are long-term. Our clients are not this 1-up 3 months and you're going to fix it, because I can promise you what got you where you were wasn't 3 months. It's a culture. It's a lifestyle. How do we do this, and how do we go about doing it? So that's one thing that we do. I'm trying to remember the other part of your question. What was it?
It's just like, what does the organization look like once you actually have action-based leaders who are, following up and
I got you. No,
accountable?
when you hear people use the language, right, of action, accountability, follow-up, because we teach them a new language, a way to communicate. It's a completely different language. So when they report back to me, because I have reporting calls with the group and all that kind of stuff. So when the leaders report back and they'll say, all right, I got action on this. Here's what the accountability looks like. And we're going to be following up by the 10th. It's to hear them in the process of the language is like so rewarding. It's so rewarding, because you see the whole entire team just operate differently. They go through conflict versus avoiding conflict. They now have redefined conflict by the time they're at this level, because we've spent time on all of those 4 pillars. And yeah, it's humming.
Which awesome. So like, what's the first step in that, right? Okay, like, let's say they identified.
A conversation. Yes. First step is, what we need to do is tell them where we've actually posted the book, where they can go get it for
yeah. So
free.
obviously, I mean, if you're interested in this, if it resonates at all, it is at ifyourteamsucks.com.
Yeah.
So you can get the ebook free, and where you can go over to Kindle and look it up. If Your Team Sucks, should pull it up on Kindle. We are working on other formats so that we can get it out further, faster. And then also on the back end, we will be building this out as a masterclass so that we can bring it into organizations, or they can schedule a call with us to start understanding, hey, if you have an inkling that your team sucks, let's actually have a conversation around it. Once we have that conversation, like, what does it look like? Because it's not just a one and done thing.
No, the first when I go into an organization, the first thing we're going to have, is a conversation. What is going on? I want to hear their perspective. I actually prefer not to hear names. Right. Yeah. I just want to hear perspective, what's going on inside. And then there's a whole series of intake questions that I ask. And then from that meeting, I decide who I want to talk to next, or who we need to talk to next, or what the next steps need to be. Because there could be an assortment of things that we have to do. Sometimes I do further interviews. Sometimes we go straight into a group training. It just depends on what the actual
what it is.
Journey is that we're going to be unfolding.
Very cool. And so it's
just
totally
like
custom.
you and I, and just like you and I yes, because every company is different. So the process is action-based leaders. How we put the pieces together could look very different for this company versus this company. Yeah, it's not a pull it off the shelf and one and done. It's not it's not a DIY.
Right. And that's what I think is huge about this is the way that it unfolds inside the organization, rather than just saying, all right, here's your manual. If everybody can do this, then everybody's good. So And I think that's why it takes more than just, hey, go read the book. It is really a conversation about what's going on and what are we trying to get to.
Yep. And here's the thing. Your first thing before having a conversation with us might be just to read the book. Go read the book. Just read the book, take out of it. Because if you go forward, the book did its work. Yeah, its job. And that's just what I'm passionate about. And Dan, I know that's what you're passionate about. The book was written also with introspective pieces in each chapter for you to do. And let me tell you, when you are shifting a culture, when you're shifting a team, when you're shifting mindset, if you are not willing to be an introspective leader that really looks at their leadership from the inside out, then you're probably not going to be calling us. And I'm okay with that.
Right.
Because this is not about Band-Aids on bullet holes. This is really going into what is happening. Why does this cycle happen? And probably you can go back and look in your career as leaders as this is something that has probably been with you for a while, because it's about patterns. It's not a good, bad, right, or wrong. This is for people wanting to go from good to great.
Yeah. And I think that's key, right? This isn't a one and done thing. And I think that's part of why the weekly podcast, right? So we'll build action-based leaders week by week, and we'll continue to grow our tribe. But I will say we will continue this next week as we dive deeper into action-based leaders live. And if you haven't already, make sure to go back and like the Cultural Alignment Solutions page so that we can get live on LinkedIn. And we will bring you more action-based leaders live next week.